You notice things other people don't see, darling, she says. Don't worry so much. It'll be all right. You'll see. Hello again, and welcome back to the channel. I'm your host. Today is part 2 of the types and subgenres of Disney animation classic video. I was actually not planning on making a part 2, but it occurred to me. I looked at the growing comments on that video, and please continue commenting because that's great for me and the channel, but I was looking at the comments on that video, and a couple of people have noted that they're surprised that I didn't put Aladdin in the Prince category, and I have to confess, I agree. But here's the thing. Aladdin, in my opinion, actually fits into both the prince and princess categories. And here's the thing. Yes, the name of the movie is Aladdin, but Sleeping Beauty is also not about Aurora as much as it is about the three fairies. And so it's possible for a mainline Disney princess movie and a mainline Disney princess to not have that princess who is in the lineup as the main character. It's possible. But what I will say is that while Sleeping Beauty only fits into the princess category, really, Aladdin, obviously, fits into the prince category as well, and I was foolish to cut him out. So actually, there are now 10 prince films. They are in order: Pinocchio, 1940, Sword in the Stone, 1963, The Jungle Book, 1967, The Black Cauldron, 1985, Aladdin, 1992, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1996, Hercules, 1997, Tarzan, 1999, The Emperor's New Groove, 2000, and Brother Bear, 2003. So that is the Prince category of films, but I'm also keeping Aladdin in the princess category because it still is a princess movie too. So it's the one true hybrid. And so that's what this follow-up video is about. This part 2 to the part 1 that I put out a couple of days ago is it's just basically the 10 or so films that I felt applied to at least 2 categories very strongly, at least 2 types of Disney story very strongly, that they fit into 2 or in some cases 3 and close to 4 types. But basically, yeah, most of the canon can really easily be categorized into one film, like about 5 out of every 6 movies can, but there's about 10 of the canon, about 1 out of every 6 movies, that is a little bit harder to pin down, and in some cases really hard to pin down, like Aladdin, obviously. And it's not that it's hard to say what they are, it's sometimes just hard to say what they're not. And in the case of Aladdin, it is 2 things so strongly and so equally that I'm actually going to put it in 2 categories right now. As you're going to see on the screen, it's going to stay in both, and I'll alter the graphics going forward now. However, I'm now going to go through the list in chronological order of the ones that I felt like fit into a couple different categories strongly enough that it is enough to mention. So here they are. And the first one I would say is Bambi from 1941. And the interesting thing about Bambi in terms of this discussion is just that it very strongly fits into the Prince films category as well as the animals of human intelligence in the human world category. It's just very, very typical of Disney's Little Prince films. It's very much like those ones. He literally grows up to be the great prince of the forest, the next great prince of the forest. So I think that from that perspective, we can really see that Bambi has got at least one hoof in the camp of Prince films. So I'm going to put these ones as sort of ghost films in these graphics, in these categories, and make them about half the size in their secondary category. And then I'm going to go through the categories again at the end with the right graphics so you can see when the sort of ghost titles appear and the ones where they fit number 2 or in some cases number 3 in terms of how strongly they fit. But yeah, so Bambi is that one, obviously. Moving on. The next one is The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So actually there's only one film under Walt that fits kind of into 2 categories. The storytelling in the years of Disney under Walt was very, very clearly delineated. It's, that's something. All right then, Walt knows what he wants, and he gets it. Except when there's a strike. That's a callback to another video. Go watch the Saludos Amigos one. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And this one I ultimately put in the Hidden World category, as I did with Winnie the Pooh 2011. But this one also very clearly fits into animals of human intelligence. If you take stuffed animals as just the same as animals. And you assume that in this world, the same is true of animals that is true of these stuffies. But in the way that Disney tells the story, it's very similar to the way that it can function. A scene can function between Christopher Robin and Pooh and an animal and a human in another movie. The other cool thing, though, is that it also fits into a third category because it fits into anthology films, because it is a collection of 3 shorts. But they're all shorts about Winnie the Pooh, which makes it actually entirely unique in the Disney animated canon because it's the only film that is a package film of one character, one set of characters. So that's pretty awesome, and I really like that. You can kind of argue that that's the case with a couple others, but it's not actually the case. But this is the one that was actually just a collection of shorts about one character, and they made a whole film of that. It's the one time out of 62 that they've done that, so that's kind of awesome in its own way. So it fits into 3 categories, which very few of these fit into 3 categories quite so well, but it fits into Hidden World, Animals of Human Intelligence, and anthology films, but ultimately I put it most strongly in the Human Worlds camp, whereas Aladdin is the only one that's in both camps equally, and I'm giving it like alternate red and pink coloring. But all of these other films have one category they fit into, and then they kind of fit secondarily into another category, but I'm not actually going to officially put them in there because they have such distinct markers for that one category. But Aladdin is a twofer, so yay, Aladdin.
Rick 'em, rack 'em, rock 'em, Rick, stick that sword into that snake! You stay out of this!
Jafar, he's our man if he can't do it.
Great!
All right, next up we have Aladdin, and I've already discussed it, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail here, but basically Aladdin is a Disney prince, but also Jasmine is a Disney princess, and that just puts it in both camps. It's so strongly both of those things. It is the perfect fusion, honestly, in the 90s. I'll give it some credit. It's not my absolute favorite of the Renaissance films. I do love it very, very much, as I love every single Musker and Clements film, but it's not my absolute favorite of the 90s or the Renaissance. However, it is the perfect synergy of prince and princess films. I will give it that, and I would love to see that again someday. That would be an awesome thing to see as a hybrid prince-princess film. That would be wonderful to have another of in the canon, so yeah, hopefully someday. We're getting so many dang princess films in this period, why not a prince-princess film? That would be great. And I love the ones that don't have romances. I love that Encanto and Wish did not have romances because they're their own thing. We've had so many romances in the past, it's great to have that. And Raya didn't have one either. But we've had a streak now of no romances. And so I would love to see a fully romantic hybrid prince-princess film like Aladdin that is really about the love story and about those 2 characters and where they're co-leads. I'd love that. And that's one of the things that makes Aladdin so special. And in my categorization of the canon and its 7 genres/types, makes it unique. All right, the next one is The Lion King, and basically everything I said about Bambi applies to The Lion King because The Lion King is kind of a soft remake of Bambi, basically in lots of ways. The Lion King is Hamlet meets Bambi. It's Bamblet. I think that lots of people call it that too. But yeah, it absolutely is Bamblet.
Hey there, demons. It's me, your boy.
And so it's obviously Animals of Human Intelligence films, but it's also very much strongly got more than a whiff of Prince films about it. So Bambi and Simba are kind of the de facto, unofficial, but so close to being Disney princes. They're just not able to be because they're animals. And that's a bit bigoted, if you're asking me, quite honestly. In fact, it's very bigoted.
That's gay?
That's homophobic.
That's black.
That's racist.
As I was going through the lists, there's a lot that fit into 2, and there's a few that fit into 3. And so I went through the list of 62 in chronological order just to make sure that I didn't miss any that I felt like needed to be discussed in this video. And so as I alluded to in the other video, when I was talking about how Atlantis and Treasure Planet were the transition films between Prince films and science fiction quest films, even though Atlantis is neither of those, it's a hidden world film. However, both Atlantis and Treasure Planet fit into all 3 of those categories. So they fit into Hidden World, they fit into Science Fiction Quest, and they fit into Prince films. Now, Atlantis fits into Prince films the least because Milo, he becomes literally a Prince of Atlantis, like he is with Kida. So I suppose he becomes the king consort of Atlantis, I guess is the best way to say that. But there's royalty involved and there's a romance involved, so it fits into the Prince category, and it has a princess. But it's very much a science fiction quest too, because there are science fiction elements, and even though it does take place in the past, there's a lot of interesting technology that occurs in the first half, and it's very cool, and there's a mix of mysticism and science fiction. But that's the interesting thing, is that because there's a mix of magic and science fiction, it can't be a science fiction quest, because basically none of the science fiction quest movies contain magic as an element. And that was the bigger discussion I wanted to get into in the middle of this video, was the difference between a Prince movie and a science fiction quest movie, because so far, all 5 of the science fiction quest movies have had a male lead character. And so it would be easy to put those 5 in the category of the Prince films and say, well, there's actually 15 Prince films if you count those 5, which means that they're still doing them and they're still around. But I would counter that by saying that much like the princess films, the Prince films hinge on magic, basically. Pinocchio hinges on magic. The Sword and the Stone, magic. The Jungle Book is magical realism. There's stuff that shouldn't happen. He's talking to animals. That's magic. All of them have magic as an element. Aladdin, Hercules, there's even some magical elements in Hunchback of Notre Dame, even though they're the elements that people hate. There's still magic in Hunchback of Notre Dame because of the gargoyles. The Black Cauldron. And so all of these Prince movies, basically without fail, have magic as an element of them. And then the last 2 had the body transformation in Emperor's New Groove and Brother Bear. And then Tarzan, I guess it's still the communication with animals, but again, it's a little bit magical. So Tarzan's the least of those. But still, in all 10 of those movies, there's magic present as an element of the plot in some way, shape, or form, I think, at the very least, or at least it's a very, very strong element between them, so much so that even when it doesn't really appear, like in Tarzan or in The Jungle Book, it still feels magical. But the science fiction quest films, starting with Treasure Planet and onward, they have nothing to do with magic. There's no magic in any of these movies, basically. It's all about technology and its applications. It's all about the future rather than the past. It's all about either the future of our world, like the Wreck-It Ralph films, or Meet the Robinsons, or it's alternate realities, like Treasure Planet or like Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 is a lot closer to our reality, but still, it's alternate dimensions or it's the future of our world. And that's what delineates the science fiction quest from being like the Prince films. And that's what makes them 2 separate categories. And so I'm glad that I did another video where I got to really fully dig into that difference, because I felt like I didn't fully address it last time. And so that basically is the difference, is magic versus science.
Magic.
Both Atlantis and Treasure Planet fit into all 3 of Hidden World, Science Fiction Quest, and Prince films in some way, shape, or form. However, with the technology aspect of Treasure Planet and the no magic, I decided to make that the first Science Fiction Quest film, which means it's quite an influential film and quite an important and pivotal film in Disney history, which is interesting because it's my favorite, but I didn't set out trying to make it a super important film in their history in terms of genre type. It just ended up being the case, and it's true. It is my favorite Disney movie of all time, my personal favorite. But that aside, it's also pretty important, even though it was a big flop at the time. It's actually quite key. And so it fits best into Science Fiction Quest, even though he kind of is a Disney prince a little bit, and Treasure Planet is itself a hidden world, but we only get there at the end. So it's a Science Fiction Quest, and Atlantis ultimately is definitely a hidden world, because it's literally called Atlantis, the Lost Empire. It's all about going to this hidden world, finding this hidden world, and discovering that it's real and it existed and it still exists. And that's the whole movie. So yes, he's a prince, kind of, and yes, it is a little bit science fiction-y, but it's still set in the past, there's still magic, and it's just about a hidden world. All right, the last few, the next one's Chicken Little, which is kind of interesting. It's in the tiny little anthropomorphic animals in place of humans films, basically. I actually don't know how I got through the last video without thinking to say the word anthropomorphic one time, but they are anthropomorphic animals, basically, even though that's a hard word to say, so I guess I kind of gave myself a break last time by not forcing myself to say it, but oh well. So basically, it's obviously that in the orange category, but it's also a little bit of a hidden world film because it's got the aliens element, and I ultimately put Lilo and Stitch in the hidden world category just because Lilo and Stitch fits that the best. It's got science fiction elements, Lilo and Stitch, but I didn't think that it actually really fit in Sci-Fi Quest at all just because there's no quest. It just is. There's nothing that the characters are super seeking. It's a character drama, and I love it. It's the villains are questing after the heroes, but the heroes are just connecting and bonding, and Stitch is finding himself, and it's a beautiful type of family drama movie. So it's actually kind of a unique Disney movie, but what it really is a hidden world, because the hidden world is Earth, and Stitch goes to it. Stitch is the one that goes to the hidden world. And so it's a wonderful flip of the hidden world trope, because the hidden world is us.
What a twist!
So yeah, even though Lilo and Stitch kind of feels like it could be in a couple different camps, it actually is very firmly in Hidden World, and one of the best entries of that list, may I say. So anyway, Chicken Little basically kind of fits Hidden World because it's another sort of alien invasion thing, but it's much less the whole point of the movie, and we don't really find out that it's aliens until halfway through, and it's just still set in that animals as humans world, so it has to be that. So it's not strongly enough Hidden World that I would put it in both categories, but I thought I'd mention it. I mean, I like Chicken Little, so most people hate it, so I just like talking about it a little bit. Winnie the Pooh 2011. Basically everything I said about the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh applies here, except for the anthology film aspect, because it's not that. But it is also Animals of Human Intelligence, but ultimately a Hidden World film, because I felt like, A, they're stuffies, but B, it just fits Hidden World the best, because 100 Acre Wood is a hidden world. So, enough said about that. The next is Strange World, and Strange World is definitely a hidden world movie because, again, it's the point. It's kind of like Atlantis, where it's just the obvious point of the movie is that the strange world that they go to, that's where they spend their time. That's the whole point of the twist anyway. I won't say too much if you haven't seen it. It's still pretty recent, but it also fits a little bit science fiction quest because they do go on a quest, and it's got a lot of science fiction elements, including technology that we don't really have in this world. It's kind of an alternate world as well, which is why I think it fits best in the hidden world category, because that's literally in the title. But I can see how it would fit into science fiction quest because, like Treasure Planet and Big Hero 6, it's kind of an alternate reality rather than our actual Earth, obviously. But I think it fits ultimately firmly in Hidden World, especially just because of its title, but I would say it has more of a foot in science fiction quest than a lot of these movies have in their other categories. It's almost a twofer, but it's pretty firm what it is. And then the last one's Wish, and I actually watched this again yesterday for the 6th time. I saw it 5 times in theaters, and then I watched it again yesterday when it came out on Disney Plus when I'm recording this video. And yeah, it's incredible. I love it. It's a princess film, obviously, even though she's not got the title of princess and she's not in the lineup currently, but she may be one day, Asha. However, it's a princess film because it's a princess type film. It's very obviously in that vein for Disney. It's very obviously in that legacy. It's basically a reinvigoration of the princess trope and just a re-examination and a retelling of a young woman's story, even though it's not specifically set on an existing fairy tale. It's set on basically the lore of Disney itself, which is why I find it so fascinating and interesting. One of the reasons I find it so fascinating and interesting and beautiful, but I love this movie and I really encourage people to either check it out for the first time or check it out again, because I really think that a lot of people missed out on a special film. But while it's obviously in the princess camp, I was watching it yesterday with my brother and sister-in-law and their very young daughter, and my niece, and after watching it, my brother said it almost is a little bit of a hidden world film because Rosas, because of the way it was formed and founded by Magnifico, it's a little bit of a hidden world in and of itself. And ultimately, I did agree with him on that Rosas is a bit of a hidden world. It's not as much of one as the ones in all 7 of the other hidden world films that are in that category. And also, almost always there are other realities they're entering. Like Neverland is kind of another reality. Wonderland is another reality. 100 Acre Wood is another reality. It must be, Atlantis is a world within a world. Lilo and Stitch, it's another planet. And then Strange World, it's again a world within a world kind of. But Wish and Rosas didn't really seem like it fit to me as much as those 7, but I will still put it in as a ghost hidden world film because I like that. And I just think that's pretty cool that it would be sort of following up Strange World, another hidden world film, but this would be such a different take on that kind of literary trope, and I think that's cool. So still a princess film, but I'll put it in as a ghost there. So now that we've reached the end, I'm going to flash up all 7 categories with their requisite ghost entries given to them. So right now in order, and you can pause and look at the screen, they are princess films, prince films, anthology films, Animals of Human Intelligence films, hidden alternate and undiscovered world films, anthropomorphized animals in place of humans world films, and finally, science fiction quest films. And that's it. That's part 2 of the 7 different types of Disney animation film, the 7 subgenres with their main entries now, with princes gaining 1 and becoming 10 rather than 9, and the other ghost entries put on their respective lists. So thank you so much for joining me today as I dove a little deeper into this topic and corrected myself on the slight error I made by leaving Aladdin out of the Prince category. And thank you very much for everybody who commented on that and made me rethink it, because I went back into my notes and I realized that at first I had categorized Aladdin as a Prince film, and then I put it back into Princess, and then I think I had it in both for a while, and then I eventually just made it pink and took it out of Prince somewhere along the line, but it should have stayed in both. So I don't know how that switch happened and where in the line that got messed up in the last year when I started writing that script, but I've now corrected it with part 2. So thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting and informative, and if you have any more thoughts, please comment below. I would love to hear people's take on this subject, because it's kind of a newish way to sort of think of the films and categorize them, stemming from the Princess category onward, and what are the rest after the Princess movies. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time and checking this out and having this discussion with me. I love this kind of dialogue. It's why I started this channel in the first place. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and if you're still here, good night, good luck, and go to sleep. It's late.
That's all.